Hey guys, welcome to your lesson on infant and childhood social development. We're going to start off with talking about parent-infant bonds and then going into some other cool things. There are some slides in this lesson that are not in your notes, so there will be some times where you're not going to write some things down, and that is okay. So, how do parent-infant bonds form? So from birth, most babies are social creatures developing an intense attachment to their caregivers. Infants come to prefer familiar faces and voices, and then coo and gurgle when given a parent's attention. Attachment is an emotional tie with another person that's shown in young children by their seeking closeness to their caregiver and showing distress on separation. Striking parent-infant attachment bond is a powerful survival impulse that keeps infants close to their caregivers. What is stranger anxiety? The fear of strangers that infants commonly display beginning by about 8 months of age. So when somebody goes to hold a baby and the baby freaks out and they're like, nope, I'm not having it, that's stranger anxiety. Stranger anxiety peaks though. So children's anxiety over separation anxiety from parents peaks at around 13 months, so just above a year old, and then it gradually declines. And what conditions create anxiety? During the 1950s, University of Wisconsin psychologists Terry Harlow and Margaret Harlow bred monkeys for their learning studies. To equalize experiences and to isolate any disease, they separated the infant monkeys from their mothers shortly after birth and raised them in individual cages, each including a cheesecloth baby blanket. Then came a surprise. When their soft blankets were taken to be washed, the monkeys became distressed. So, how does attachment to a caregiver occur? For many years, psychologists reasoned that infants became attached to those who satisfied their need for nourishment. The Harlows recognized that the monkey's intense need for the blanket contradicted the idea that attachment derives from an association with nourishment. So, psychologists Harry and Margaret Harlow raised monkeys with two artificial mothers. One, a bare wire cylinder with a wooden head and an attached feeding bottle, and the other, a cylinder with no bottle but covered with foam rubber and wrapped with terry cloth. The assumptions in the Harlow study that when raised with both, the monkeys overwhelmingly preferred the comfy cloth. Like other infants clinging to their live mothers, the babies would cling to their cloth mothers when anxious. When exploring their environment, they used her as a secure base, as if attached to her by an invisible elastic band that stretched only so far before pulling them back. Researchers soon learned that other qualities, such as rocking, warmth, and feeding, made the cloth mother even more appealing. So, moving into the the next part of the lesson. What's the critical period for development of attachment? Another key to attachment is familiarity. In many animals, attachments based on familiarity form during what's called a critical period. This is an optimal period when certain events must take place to facilitate proper development. For goslings, ducklings, or chicks, the critical period falls in the hours shortly after hatching, when the first moving object they see is normally their mother. From then on, the young follow her and her alone. Conrad Lorenz explored imprinting in geese, which imprinting is the process by which certain animals form strong attachments during early life. Lorenz wondered what would ducklings do if he was the first moving creature they observed. What they did was follow him around. Although baby birds imprint best to their own species, they also will imprint to a variety of moving objects. An animal or another species, a box on wheels, a bouncing ball, etc. Do humans imprint? Children, unlike ducklings, do not imprint. However, they do become attached during a less precisely defined sensitive period to what they've known. Mere exposure to people and things fosters fondness. So children like to reread the same books, rewatch the same movies, reenact family traditions. They prefer to eat familiar foods, live in the same familiar neighborhood, attend school with the same old friends, etc. But do not imprint. What accounts for children's attachment differences? Mary Ainsworth designed the strange situation experiment. She observed mother-infant pairs at home during their first 6 months. Later, she observed the 1-year-old infants in a strange situation, usually a laboratory playroom, with and without their mothers. What was the strange situation design? A procedure for studying child-caregiver attachment. A child is placed in an unfamiliar environment while their caregiver leaves and then returns, and the child's reactions are observed. Ainsworth found that sensitive, responsive mothers had infants who were securely attached. Insensitive, unresponsive moms had infants who were insecurely attached. So what's the difference between a secure and insecure attachment? Secure attachments are demonstrated by infants who comfortably explore environments in the presence of their caregiver, show only temporary distress when the caregiver leaves, and find comfort in the caregiver's return. Insecure attachment is demonstrated by infants who display either a clinging, anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment that resists closeness. And there are 2 types of insecure attachment. There's anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. Anxious attachment, people constantly crave acceptance but remain vigilant to signs of possible rejection. With avoidant attachment, people experience discomfort getting close to others and use avoidant strategies to maintain distance from others. How does insecure attachment affect romantic relationships? In romantic relationships, an anxious attachment style creates constant concern over rejection, leading people to cling to their partners. An avoidant attachment style decreases commitment and increases conflict. What is temperament? Switching gears. Temperament is a person's innate and inborn characteristic emotional reactivity and intensity. Oh, he's cute all right, but he's got the temperament of a car alarm. Can an infant's temperament influence attachment? So twin and developmental studies reveal that heredity affects temperament, and temperament affects attachment style. Shortly after birth, some babies are noticeably difficult, irritable, intense, and unpredictable. Others have an easy temperament, cheerful, relaxed, and feeding and sleeping on predictable schedules. How does temperament impact parenting? This helps explain why parenting correlates with children's behavior. It's partly because children with difficult temperaments elicit and react to more negative parenting. How do we vary parenting while controlling for temperament? One Dutch researcher's solution was to randomly assign 100 temperamentally difficult 6 to 9 month olds to either an experimental group in which mothers received personal training in sensitive responding, or to a control group in which they did not. At 12 months of age, 68% of the infants in the experimental group were securely attached, compared to only 28% of the control group infants. What bias has historically existed toward fathering? Well, words have meaning. Infants who lack a caring mother are said to suffer maternal deprivation. Those lacking a father's care merely experience what's called father absence. This reflects a wider attitude in which fathering a child has meant impregnating and mothering has meant nurturing. Let's not even talk about the dads that babysit their children when the mother goes out. Parenting is for dads too. Emperor penguin dads may lose half their body weight over the 2 months they spend keeping a precious egg warm during a harsh Antarctic winter. After mom returns from the sea, both parents take turns caring for and feeding the chick. Stay-at-home dads. Financial analyst Walter Cranford is a stay-at-home dad with twins. Cranford says the experience has made him appreciate how difficult the work can be. Sometimes at work you can just unplug, but with this you've got to be going all the time. What does the research show about the power of dads? Across nearly 100 studies worldwide, a father's love and acceptance have been comparable with a mother's love in predicting their offspring's health and well-being. What impact does involved fathering have on a children's success in school? In one large British longitudinal study, following 7,259 children from birth to adulthood, those whose fathers were most involved in parenting through outings, reading to them, and taking interest in their education tended to achieve more in school. Co-parenting positives. That's when mom and dad both parent. Active dads are caregiving more. Couples that share housework and childcare are happier in their relationships and less divorce prone. Co-parenting supports kids. Parents' genders don't affect children's well-being. So these are just a few of the examples of how co-parenting is a positive thing. How does a secure attachment lead to a sense of basic trust? Developmental psychologist Erik Erikson, working with his wife Joan Erikson, believed that securely attached children approach life with a sense of basic trust, a sense that the world is predictable and reliable. He attributed basic trust not to environment or inborn temperament, but to early parenting. He theorized that infants blessed with sensitive, loving caregivers form a lifelong attitude of trust rather than fear. How does abuse or neglect affect children's attachment? One of the most provocative studies on children deprived of care came from Romanian orphanages. These socially deprived children had lower intelligence scores, reduced brain development, abnormal stress responses, and quadruple the rate of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, found in children assigned to quality foster care settings. In this 1980s Romanian orphanage, the 250 children between ages 1 and 5 outnumbered caregivers 15 to 1. Abused children's brains respond to angry faces with heightened activity in threat-detecting areas. In conflict-plagued homes, even sleeping infants' brains show heightened reactivity to hearing angry speech. And if repeatedly threatened and attacked while young, normally placid golden hamsters grow up to be cowards when caged with the same size hamsters, or bullies when caged with weaker ones. What are the long-term impacts of abuse? So, child abuse can often also leave epigenetic marks, chemical tags that can alter normal gene expression. Such findings help explain why young children who have survived severe or prolonged physical abuse, childhood sexual abuse, bullying, or wartime atrocities are at increased risk for health problems, psychological disorders, substance abuse, and criminality. Can adversity produce well-adjusted adults? Well, most children growing up under adversity, such as surviving children of the Holocaust and victims of sexual abuse, are resilient. They withstand the trauma and become well-adjusted adults. What is a self-concept? Infancy's major social achievement is attachment. Childhood's major social achievement is a positive sense of self. By the end of childhood, at about age 12, most children have developed a self-concept, an understanding and assessment of who they are. How does self-concept develop? In 1877, biologist Charles Darwin offered one idea. Self-awareness begins when we recognize ourselves in a mirror. How does self-concept develop? So in 1877, biologist Charles Darwin offered one idea. Self-awareness begins when we recognize ourselves in a mirror. What research has been conducted on self-concept? To see whether a child recognizes that the girl in the mirror is indeed herself, researchers dabbed color on her nose. At about 6 months, children reach out to touch their mirror image as if it were another child. By 15 to 18 months, they begin to touch their own noses when they see the colored spot in the mirror. Well, why does self-concept matter? Children's views of themselves affect their actions. Children who form a positive self-concept are more confident, independent, optimistic, assertive, and sociable. How can parents and step-parents encourage a positive self-concept? The most heavily researched aspect of parenting has been how and to what extent parents seek to control their children. Parenting styles can be described as a combination of two traits: how responsive and how demanding parents are. What are the 4 types of parenting styles? Authoritarian parents impose rules and demand obedience. Authoritative parents set rules but allow open discussion and exceptions. Permissive parents set few limits, make few demands, and use little punishment. Negligent parents are careless, inattentive, and do not seek a close relationship with their children. AP exam tip. It's understandable if you're struggling to remember the difference between authoritarian and authoritative. Maybe it will help to realize that the authoritative parents will engage in a little more give and take, while authoritarian parents do not negotiate at all. The words give and authoritative both end in the letters IVE. So give and take, authoritative, and then authoritarian, do not negotiate. You can say that it ends in an N, so no negotiation. Like, this is the rule, this is what we're doing, I'm not bending at all. Or you can make up your own mnemonic device. So, what outcomes are associated with authoritarian parenting styles? Authoritarian parents, children with less social skill and self-esteem, and a brain that overreacts when they make mistakes. Permissive parents, what outcomes are associated with permissive parenting styles? Children who are more aggressive and immature. With negligent, children with poor academic and social outcomes. And authoritative parents, children with the highest self-esteem, self-reliance, self-regulation, and social competence. Beware the correlation fallacy. So, however, remember, correlation does not mean causation. So what other factors might explain this parenting competence link? Children's traits may influence parenting. Parental warmth and control vary somewhat from child to child, even in the same family. Maybe socially mature, agreeable, easygoing children evoke greater trust and warmth from their parents. Twin studies have supported this possibility. Some underlying third factor may be at work. Perhaps, for example, competent parents and their competent children share genes that predispose social competence. Twin studies have also supported that possibility. So put that in your own words. Really, the takeaway is that correlation does not equal causation with these parenting styles and how the children end up.